The night the storm swallowed the city, Mara Ellington learned how cold loneliness could be. Rain lashed against the narrow apartment hallway windows like handfuls of thrown gravel. The power had flickered twice, and the wind howled through the old building as if it had found 100 tiny cracks to scream through. Mara stood outside her apartment door, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her thin cardigan useless against the chill that seeped into her bones. She had locked herself out again, and this time, the spare key she normally kept in her bag was gone, probably left behind at the cafe where she had just been laid off that morning. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the way small moments can change entire lives, take a second right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest act of warmth can light up the darkest night. Mara had moved into the building 6 months earlier, hoping for a fresh start. Fresh starts were supposed to feel hopeful. Hers felt fragile. She had left behind a relationship that drained her confidence and a small town where everyone knew her failures by heart. In this city, she thought she could rebuild quietly. Instead, she found herself in a cramped apartment with peeling paint, unpredictable plumbing, and a neighbor known for slamming doors at precisely 7:12 every morning. That neighbor was Rowan Hale. Rowan lived directly across the hall in apartment 3B. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and permanently dressed in dark t-shirts like the one he wore now, standing in his doorway with a frown etched across his face. He was holding a beige jacket over one arm, his hair was slightly messy, as if he had run his hands through it too many times, and his watch glinted under the hallway's harsh fluorescent lights. Mara had seen him plenty of times. He rarely spoke. When he did, it was short and clipped, the kind of man who looked like he had once believed in something deeply and then stopped. Now he was staring at her as she shivered in the storm-battered hallway. "You're locked out," he said flatly. Not a question. Mara nodded, embarrassed. Her fingers were trembling, partly from the cold, partly from the humiliation of being seen at her lowest again. She hated looking helpless. She hated feeling like the world was always 2 steps ahead of her. The building manager wasn't answering her calls. The cafe had just cut her last shift. Her savings were dangerously thin. She imagined herself spending the night on the stairwell floor, wrapped in regret and rain-damp clothes. Rowan studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped closer, holding out the jacket. "Take my jacket," he said gruffly. "You look like you're freezing." The offer stunned her. It wasn't said gently. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even warm in tone, but it was real. Mara hesitated. She wasn't used to accepting help. Help always came with strings in her past. But Rowan didn't look like someone offering pity. He looked almost annoyed at the fact that she was cold. She slipped her arms into the jacket. It was heavy, structured, still warm from his body. The lining brushed her skin like a quiet promise. The scent of cedar and clean soap clung to it. For the first time that day, she felt something other than dread. Rowan didn't make it a big moment. He simply leaned against the wall across from her and said he'd already called the building manager when the lights flickered earlier. "He'll show," Rowan muttered. "Eventually." They stood there in silence, listening to the storm rage outside. The jacket wrapped around her like armor, not just against the cold, but against the ache of the day. The manager arrived 45 minutes later. By then, the worst of the storm had passed. Mara stepped back into her apartment, clutching the jacket around her shoulders. She meant to return it the next morning. She didn't. Because the next morning, she woke to a call from the cafe owner confirming that her job wasn't coming back. Budget cuts. Nothing personal, just business. The jacket lay draped over her kitchen chair. It felt like the only solid thing in a room filled with uncertainty. She told herself she'd return it later, after she sent out resumes, after she figured out how to pay next month's rent, after she stopped feeling like she was drowning in slow motion. Days passed. Each morning, she slipped the jacket on before heading out to job interviews. It gave her shoulders a sharper line, a stronger silhouette. In mirrors, she looked less fragile, more capable, as if the woman staring back might actually survive this. Rowan noticed, of course. He saw her in the hallway one afternoon, rushing toward the stairs, the beige jacket unmistakable against her green dress. His eyes flicked to it, then to her face. He didn't say anything, but something shifted. He started holding the door open for her when they crossed paths. Once, he carried a heavy grocery bag to her apartment without being asked. Another time, he left a small bag of oranges outside her door with no note. The building gossip suggested Rowan used to be different. Before his sister passed away, before the accident, before whatever had hollowed him out. Mara didn't ask. She understood private pain. One evening, after yet another rejection email, she sat on her apartment floor and cried into the jacket's sleeve. The fabric absorbed her tears without judgment. She realized then that it wasn't just warmth she was borrowing. It was steadiness. The next time she saw Rowan, she thanked him properly, not just for the jacket, but for calling the manager, for the oranges, for the door. He shrugged. Didn't do much. You did? She insisted quietly. He looked at her differently after that. Not as a neighbor, not as an inconvenience, but as someone standing at the edge of something fragile. Weeks passed. Mara landed a part-time position at a small publishing office. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't stable, but it was a start. On her first day, she wore the jacket again. She noticed how Rowan's expression softened when he saw her leave that morning, chin lifted slightly higher than usual. But life doesn't change in one straight line. The publishing office downsized 2 months later. Mara's name was on the list. Again. This time, she didn't cry in her apartment alone. She knocked on 3B. Rowan opened the door, surprised. She didn't explain everything. She just said, I think I'm bad at starting over. He didn't offer cliches. He didn't say everything happens for a reason. He simply stepped aside and let her in. His apartment was simple, clean, almost bare. A framed photograph sat on a shelf, a younger Rowan beside a smiling woman who looked like she shared his eyes. My sister, he said when he noticed her glance. She believed I could fix anything. The words hung heavy. What happened? Mara asked gently. Car accident. I was driving. There it was. The weight he carried. The reason he never smiled easily. The reason doors slammed at 7:12. The exact time of the accident. I couldn't fix that, he said. Silence wrapped around them. Mara slowly removed the jacket and placed it on his kitchen table. You fixed something, she whispered. He looked at the jacket as if seeing it for the first time. She told him how she had worn it to every interview, how it made her feel braver, how it kept her from giving up on nights when quitting felt easier, how it reminded her that someone, even a grumpy neighbor, had noticed she was cold. His jaw tightened, not in anger, in emotion. You never gave it back, he said quietly. I guess I needed it, she replied. He stepped closer, not invading her space, just enough to be steady. You still do. From that night on, something changed between them. Not instantly romantic, not dramatic, but steady. They began sharing quiet dinners, exchanging stories, laughing, softly at first, then more freely. Mara found freelance editing work, then a steady position at a growing digital magazine. Rowan started volunteering at a community auto shop, helping teens learn repair skills, something his sister used to encourage. The jacket remained with Mara. Months later, on a clear autumn evening, they stood on the building's rooftop. The city lights shimmered below like scattered stars. The wind was cool, but not cruel. Mara wore the jacket. Rowan stood beside her, hands in his pockets. You know, she said, I think we both needed that storm. He nodded. I think I needed to see someone else survive. She turned to him, eyes bright but steady. You didn't just give me a jacket, Rowan. You gave me proof that not everyone walks away. And that was the truth. Kindness had not fixed everything. It had not erased grief or guaranteed success. but it had bridged a gap between two lonely apartments. It had turned silence into connection. It had taken a man who believed he couldn't fix anything and shown him that warmth, offered once, could echo for a lifetime. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that small acts matter, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate hope. And before we end, write in the comments, kindness stays. Let's fill the comment section with that reminder, because sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with grand gestures. Sometimes they begin with a grumpy neighbor, a storm-filled hallway, and 3 simple words: take my jacket, and she never gave it back.